In the corn. All the kids in town hated walking past the old McCormick farm. They had a great big cornfield that edged up to the road with a small hill in the center. At the top of this hill, they kept a terrible old scarecrow. It had been there for as long as any of the kids had known. No one knew if it had a proper name, but the children of the town had taken to calling it Frank. Frank had a swollen, bulbous head, with creepy little beady eyes sewn in. His smile was crooked and menacing, and his body was tattered and rotting away. During the day, Frank was creepy enough to look at, but at night, he was positively terrifying. What's worse is that the McCormick farm was right on the main road that the school bus stopped at, so every day the children had to walk past it. Fortunately, school got out early enough that the kids still had a bit of time to pass the cornfield before the sun started going down. And when you were in the company of a few other people, it was far easier to feel brave. Some days, when the school children were feeling particularly brazen, they would dare each other to run up and touch Frank. Some kids were more timid and would gently pat the fabric dangling from Frank's torso. Meanwhile, others were showy and would strike and punch the scarecrow before dashing back to join the others. Most children, though, would refuse to participate altogether. One afternoon, Billy and his friends got off of the school bus and started their walk back to town. As usual, they came upon the old McCormick cornfield. Billy had always been nervous around the field. Ever since he was little, he had always hated passing by Frank. The old scarecrow scared him to the bone. Somehow, for all these years, Billy had gotten out of being dared to interact with the scarecrow. But unfortunately, his time was about to run out. As they neared the old cornfield, Billy looked away, not wanting to even see Frank. Unfortunately for Billy, his friends spotted this. "Aw, is Billy afraid of a big, bad scarecrow?" his friend Randy shouted. "I am not," Billy huffed in response. "Well then, you should go touch Frank," Randy replied. "That's stupid. Tons of kids have done that before. He's just a rotten old scarecrow. That wouldn't prove anything," Billy shot back. For a moment, he was very pleased with himself, thinking he had talked his way out of a dare once again. And at first, it seemed that it had worked. Randy sat quiet in thought for a moment, before getting a wicked grin on his face. "You're right, Billy. That wouldn't prove anything. That's why you need to come back and do it at night." All the children in the group gasped and looked at Billy with eager eyes. Billy grumbled under his breath. He should have just sucked it up and gone to touch the stupid thing when he had the chance. But he had to go and open his big mouth. "That's stupid too, Randy," he replied. "Sounds like you're scared," Randy said. Getting angry, Billy shouted back, "Fine, I'll do it, but only if you do it too." All the children gasped and waited quietly for Randy's answer. Randy clearly wasn't expecting this turn of events, but he also didn't want to be seen as a chicken. "You're on. Let's do it. Tonight at 9 p.m. The whole rest of the day, Billy dreaded the coming sunset. Why had he agreed? He was already scared of Frank as it was, and now he had to go touch him in the dark. What a nightmare. But time ticked on, and soon enough, Billy found himself back on the edge of town, looking out into the McCormick cornfield with Randy at his side. Two more of her friends had shown up to be witnesses. After waiting around nervously for a little while, Randy finally proclaimed that they should just go and get it over with. Billy nodded in agreement, even though it was the last thing he actually wanted to do. And so, the two boys began walking through the corn. During the day, the tall stalks did not look anything out of the ordinary, but at night, the way they slightly swayed in the wind looked downright ominous. The two boys walked in silence until they reached the base of the hill. Looking up, they could see Frank looming over them from the top. "Come on now, don't be a baby," Randy snickered before starting to climb up the hill. Reluctantly, Billy followed. It wasn't a large hill, so it didn't take long for them to reach the top. Looking back, they could see their friends standing at the edge of a cornfield. They shouted words of encouragement and waved. This seemed to pump Randy up. "He's not so scary, is he?" Billy stared up at Frank and deeply disagreed. His bulbous head arched over to the side, and his beady little eyes glittered wickedly in the light of a moon. Somehow, his stitched smile looked more like a sneer as deep shadows were cast across his face. Randy wasted no time in running up and giving the tattered torso a firm slap. Their friends on the edge of the field cheered at the sight of this. "Come on, Billy. Don't chicken out now." Taking a big breath, Billy walked up to Frank. Slowly, he lifted his head and hand, and slower still, he reached out, never once taking his eyes off of Frank's rotten face. Ever so gently, he touched the hem of Frank's shirt before pulling back his hand. Billy's heart started pounding in his chest. It was probably just the wind or something, but he could swear that the moment his hand touched the fabric, Frank moved his head. He didn't even wait to receive the praise and cheers of his friends on the road before he began jogging down the hill. He could hear Randy cackling behind him, but he didn't care. He had done the dare, and that was enough. But it wasn't enough for Randy. Wanting to score more cool points in front of his friends, Randy began smacking Frank. He struck him again and again, as if he were a punching bag. He laughed all the while as he did this. Eventually, he got tired of his foe and started to follow Billy down the hill. Soon, both of the boys were back in the tall corn. "Why did you have to hit him like that?" Billy asked. "Oh, come on, it's just a stupid scarecrow. Who cares?" Randy responded. Before Billy could reply, the sound of screams filled the air. It was their friends out by the road. They were screaming for their lives and ran away, leaving Billy and Randy behind. Randy shouted at the boys for leaving without him, but Billy stayed quiet. He had a bad feeling in his stomach. Slowly, he turned to look back to the top of the hill. Frank was gone. Terror filled Billy, and he began running. Soon enough, Randy realized what had happened as well and also began running. It was pitch dark and very confusing running through the corn, and Billy almost got lost several times. He looked over his shoulder and saw the stalks of corn shaking violently. Terrified, Billy ran even faster, and by some miracle he made it to the edge of a field and jumped out onto the road. While catching his breath, Billy suddenly heard a sound that chilled him to the bone. It was Randy screaming. He tried looking out into the corn for any sign of him, but couldn't see a thing. After a moment, the screaming stopped. It was eerily quiet. Even the wind stopped blowing. Then suddenly, the corn started to shake again, heading towards the edge of a road. Billy was way too scared to stick around, so he bolted down the road back toward town. He felt bad for leaving Randy behind, but there was no way he was going back there. When the following morning came and it was time for school, Billy met up with his other friends again. They both looked white as snow and scared stiff. When they got to the cornfield, they looked out to the hill. What they saw tied a knot in their stomachs. Frank was back in his spot, but he was now wearing Randy's blood-soaked jacket.